Okay, I think we are online. So welcome everybody. Good evening, good afternoon. Today our guest is Seale. We are really excited for this meeting. And I warmly welcome everybody who's with us today. And of course, those of you who will watch this video later in our group or anywhere. So welcome, Alan. Welcome, Joanna. It's great to have you, everybody, have you here. And I think we can continue.
Yes. We're so happy to have you here, Alan. That was one of our dreams, to having you as a guest in Transformational Stories. And the origin of Transformational Stories were inviting our community members to tell about their experience with transformational presence. And I just realized that now we have a source of transformational presence here. So it's really lovely that you are our guest today.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's continue. We got some ideas for questions for you. And our first question, would you like to say about your work in the world? How would you describe yourself and your work in the world as a source of transformational presence?
Well, first, let's thank you so much, Joanna and Patrick, for this invitation and this chance to be with you. It's just the huge love that flows among the three of us and through this community, and it's just great to be here with you today. Let's talk a moment first just about the source of transformational presence, because I don't feel like that I am the source of it. Transformational presence is the source. It's this energy, and it came flowing through me a number of years ago and began to come into form. And now it continues to flow through so many of you in the world, and it keeps evolving and growing in really extraordinary ways. So just to say that, it's not that Alan Seale is the source. Alan Seale brought it through in this form to start with, and it just keeps moving through all of us.
The other part of the question was, how do you describe yourself doing your work in the world? Because it's like when somebody asks you, so what are you doing, Alan, in your life? What are you doing?
I feel like that the essence of what my work is about awareness. It's about awakening awareness. It's about opening, stretching awareness, expanding our capacities for awareness awareness on many different levels. So my soul mission, my purpose in life is I liberate and empower. It's about helping people set themselves free from whatever may be holding them back. I can't set them free, but I can help you, support you to set yourself free from whatever's holding you back. And then helping you empower yourself to take the next steps. And one of the things about soul mission is it's not only the gift that you give to the world, but it's also your greatest lesson. And there's hardly a day that passes that I don't in some way say, Alan, what is it that you must liberate yourself from right now? And what is the empowerment that must come here for you to take my next step, to bring what I have to bring to the world in its next form, and so forth. So it's about liberating and empowering. It's about expanding awareness. It's about recognizing that all of life really is a dialogue, not with just other people, but with our surroundings, with the energy, with everything that's happening, to recognize there are messages everywhere. There's information for us everywhere. And as leaders, this is kind of new territory for us to step into, to recognize that there's enormous wisdom inherent within whatever the situation may be that we are in the moment. And so our first task is to listen to it.
Great. I wonder, because I know a little bit of your story, and I know that before you became a coach, you were an artist. And I believe, personally knowing you a little bit better, that you still are an artist. How is that connected?
So yes, my first career was as a singer, an opera singer and concert singer in New York, and even bigger as a voice teacher for opera singers and theater singers in New York. And for me, a lot of people say, how did you get from there to what you're doing now? And for me, it was the most natural unfolding, because again, as a voice teacher, I was helping people to set their voices free and empowering them through their technique. I was a technique teacher for bringing their message to the world, and through the most incredible sound that is there for them. So there was that as the teacher, the aspect of it, but also as a performer, there's not a day that passes that I don't reflect back on something that's happening today that comes out of my experience as a performer, what I learned as a performer in terms of energy, in terms of inhabiting a space, in terms of awareness of everything that's going on the stage at the same time. If you're in an opera performance or you're singing a concert with an orchestra, there's a lot happening on the stage. And so it's being aware of all of that, being aware of your audience, being aware of the energy. There are so many layers. And for me, that was a wonderful kind of opening for doing this work.
Yeah, it's great. It's
And I'm wondering, because there is this, obviously, there is so many different things that are same in your work as an artist and in your work as a coach and inspirer, a leader. And I was wondering how it all started with transformational presence. And I was maybe even the question like, how did transformational presence found you? That's what we were wondering with Patrick lately.
And we can
So
continue.
how did it find me? I think that there was this awareness from childhood of that there are lots of layers. There's a lot going on. Growing up in the South in the United States in a small town, that was not something you ever talked about, but I had this feeling about it. And then as I finished my education and began stepping out into the world professionally and stepping out into the world personally, I realized I had to come back to that. I had to come back to finding out what is this bigger picture of what life is all about. And I wouldn't have had the language then for understanding life as energy and motion, but that's really what that was about. And so initially working with singers and then working with performers and understanding how energy moves in their work, whether they're dancers or singers or actors or instrumentalists, pianists, doing that work kind of kept helping me to understand, letting the energy teach me how it worked, and letting the human energy system. We work with the chakras in our work to some degree. That's not the leading part of our work, but it's just one of the pieces. And they keep teaching me the Hermetic principles on which all of life really is based. They keep teaching me after all these years. And so in the early years, that was unfolding. And there was a lot of sort of personal development work for myself and then doing that with others as we went along. And I remember when after the first 4 books were published, then I wrote Create a World That Works, and which was kind of the bridge into leadership work. And I remember when I sent that to my publisher, really for them to turn it down, because all the work we had done had been much more about personal development and spiritual development, the early books. And I thought, this is not their kind of book. So I had a really good relationship with them. I wanted to at least honor them by taking it to them first. And immediately the publisher said, oh, yes, we want to publish this book. And then she said, we just need to tweak it so it's a little more personal development. And I said, no, we have already done 3 really strong personal development books. Well, what are we going to do with this personal development? Where are we going with that? What is the difference we're going to make in the world? And she said, okay. And the book went as it was. So that it was that bridge kind of through my coaching practice, starting out as life coaching, which, I think if we're honest with ourselves, every kind of coaching ultimately comes down to life coaching, because it's about who are we and how are we showing up. But it was more kind of personally focused, and then began to evolve into service and leadership. And this was in the late 2000s. And So I initially, along with a colleague, Devin Wilson, I created a program called Future World Now, which was all about listening to the future and what is it asking us for now. And it was kind of the early part of transformational presence. That's where it became like a laboratory, you know. We led that program several times. I was living in the Catskill Mountains at the time, and on a beautiful property in the country. And so people would come there in the summertime and we would lead this workshop on our property. We put up a big tent we lived on a little lake, and we put up a big tent by the lake, and we did everything outside in the tent by the lake. And that was like laboratory, I think, is a really good word for that program. It helped this work begin to come to life. And then I thought, I think maybe there's a coaching program in this and a leadership program in this. And so I created a teleclass that I thought maybe there'll be some people interested in that. And it was like a 7-month teleclass program. And then after a couple of years, someone in the Netherlands said, don't you want to do this in person? And so we did in 5 days. And then it just kept evolving. So 2009 was the first time we did the Transformational Presence Leadership and Coaching Program. 2010, I actually formed the Center for Transformational Presence, and it just keeps on evolving now. It's, in essence, how did this work come to be? It's by saying yes to what I was being asked for.
Right.
I think that's the most important piece of the evolution of the work, because 20 years ago, I would never have imagined that all that has happened would have happened, and I would have worked in so many countries and gotten to be with so many people like you in so many parts of the world. So it's been an enormous gift. And where did it come from? From saying yes to what I felt like I was being asked for next.
Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing this. And I personally remember part of that way, because I met you in person in 2012 in London, when there was a room filled with 500 people. Like most of the people from this conference just went for your workshop, and we were so impressed how you managed this crowd to really go so smoothly through the exercise that you were planning to have. I don't know if you imagine how many people wanted to join you then. And I was observing you, how you were making those steps forward. And I even remember myself, 2014, first time in your training, in your program, and you were very clear that you're doing this work alone. And then the followers showed up, and then everything is changing. So I'm wondering, how is this energy is leading you right now? What are you noticing about leadership and about the work that you're doing? What is shifting? What is changing?
Well, 2012, when we first met one another in London, that event actually, which was totally unexpected for what happened there. I mean, I thought, maybe I'll have 100 people or something, for this workshop, and we ended up with 500 people, and it was incredibly humbling and incredibly affirming. There was so much that came out of that day, so many invitations, so many possibilities that emerged. So I am forever grateful for that day. In a way, it's like it wasn't the beginning of our international work, but it certainly bounced the international work to a whole other level. And so now we come to 2021, having been through COVID and all the changes in the world and that keep unfolding because of COVID. My travel suddenly stopped. I was already planning to wind down my travel, in 22 and be finished by 23. That just got accelerated because of COVID. And that certainly was an adjustment to make inside, and yet continuing to follow the energy, continuing to say yes to what am I being asked for. It's been about mentoring a group of 10, you were 2 of them, for continuing to lead this work, the signature programs in the world, and the fundamental essence of this work. And for my focus to be more and more on mentoring and coaching leaders and coaches who are ready to take that next step, it's mentoring in presence. How are you showing up? It's not about how to do what you know what to do. It's the way we get in our own way inside. It's the alignment that has to happen inside of us. It's addressing the fears and the doubts and the stuff that comes up inside of us. And it's also following that potential within us that's calling out to us and moving through those voices inside that says, who do you think you are? Do you really think you can step out there and do that? And in fact, the people who are so confident that they can are often not the ones who are actually going to lead us in the most powerful work. It is most of the time the ones who question that, because there's that humility in that, and there's such a purity and an honesty in that. And so this work now it just keeps on being with people to say, come on, there's a huge gift that's inside of you that's wanting to shine. It's time to go there. Let's go there now.
Great. It's one of the most beautiful things I found when I met you is consistency. And now listening to this story and seeing what you teach as a coach, as a leader, it's unbelievably consistent. And I just want to personally say thank you, because this is great from my perspective. And I remember myself reading one of your book, Intuitive Living. I remember that for me personally was quite actually not quite but very deep and spiritual experience reading this book. And I wonder, now you are a person that people follow you, and sometimes I like to think about you like as, or sorry, not like, but as a life teacher. And I wonder, what are stories with other people you met on your path you could call your life teachers and they influenced you? Would you like to share at least 2 or 3 examples of people like that?
Thank you. There've been a number of people along the way. I have always said that I've read amazing books and I've worked with some wonderful teachers, and yet the most important teaching has always come through my own meditation practice. So I want to emphasize that first. It's about your personal practice and your willingness to be in the stillness and to listen, and trust that there is a wisdom, there is an intelligence in every moment, in every situation. One of the exercises that we do in the TPLA, I know it's a program that the 2 of you will lead soon, Transformational Presence, Leadership, and Action, is about recognizing that there is a wisdom within us, and there is a wisdom within a situation as it is unfolding, and that both are important to listen to. And it's an exercise for actually working with the wisdom of the situation and the wisdom inside of you, and then finding where do they come together, what's that bridge, and what that's about. Because we're not taught, again, as leaders in a mainstream world, to listen for the wisdom in the situation. So to recognize that life is a huge teacher if you will listen and pay attention to every moment. Now, in terms of people, there was a very important teacher for me very early on in the spiritualist tradition, named John King, that was in New York. And I worked with him for a couple of years, literally once a week, spending several hours in an afternoon with him, doing all kinds of energy work. He was a very interesting guy with his four grandparents, each of which were shamans in different traditions. One in Yoruba, one in the Caribbean religions, native religions, one in the South American tradition, and one in Native American tradition. So he had this all this energy that sort of came together that was quite amazing. So he was a very important teacher for me early on. Rick Jarrow was another really important teacher. And Rick, well, he has a PhD in Hindu studies, and he teaches Hindu studies, or at that time was teaching Hindu studies at Columbia University in New York. but also was so deeply rooted in Native American studies. And so it was this combination of Hinduism and Native American tradition and how that came together. And he was a master astrologer. And so bringing all these pieces together, I have to say that the people who have had the biggest impact on me are people who have come from many traditions coming together. And it's the same in my own path. I grew up in the Christian tradition, but I can't call myself that now. It's much more universal in what my sense of spirituality is. More recently, maybe three teachers that have had an impact on me. One is David Whyte, the poet, and his poetry speaks to me so profoundly, which was in itself a huge gift because I never sort of understood poetry. It's just like, I don't get it. Maybe I'm just not smart enough, whatever. And something about his poetry, and to some degree John O'Donohue, but especially David Whyte's poetry, just opened a door for me. And by no means not every poem that he's written, but many of them have spoken to me. Another is Richard Rohr from the Center for Action and Contemplation in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His writings and teachings, again, it's not everything that he writes, but I get his daily meditation, and some weeks I don't pay any attention at all. It's not calling me. And other weeks I'm right there on it every single day because there's something there. It's paying attention to what's reaching out to you and grabbing hold of you. And if something's grabbing hold of you, then stay with it, see what's there. The last person I would mention is John Philip Newell, who is perhaps the leading scholar today in Celtic Christianity and Celtic religion. And so him coming out of the Anglican Episcopal tradition from the Church of Scotland, and then sort of moving more and more towards the Celtic studies and working with the early Christian mystics in that sort of earth-based spirituality kind of way. So these are all people who have made a huge impact on me. And maybe the last person that I'll mention is my father. Yeah, sorry, that's
Thank you.
There's just a tenderness there. I lost my mother a few months ago, and my father 10 years ago, but my father was a huge impact, and my mother as well.
Great. I feel deep gratitude towards your parents and those people you mentioned, and also taking with me your words that one of the greatest teacher is life. Life as a teacher is a great concept. And I truly see that this is what you teach, actually, with the whole variety and the whole richness of wisdom that comes through your teachings.
Well, Patrick, I know you want to say something, Joanna, we'll go there, but just this whole, when we recognize life as the teacher, there's the saying for those of us who are teachers, we teach what it is that we need to learn. Well, in the same way, if we will be in the trust of this, life brings us what we need to learn. Yeah. And to trust that every experience that shows up, if one of the first questions we ask is, well, in fact, we have a 3-question piece to work with life in this way. The first question is, what is important for me to pay attention to right now? And then the second question, what am I being asked to learn right now? And the third question then, so based on what's important to pay attention to and what I'm being asked to learn, what is my next step? And it turns it around from this heaviness of, I did something wrong, or why is this so hard, or being lost and confused, into just, this is what's important to pay attention to right now. And this is the opportunity for learning. That's why we're here.
I love it.
And I'm so grateful for sharing what you're sharing, Alan, because my next question was actually very much around what you just shared. We just noticed that sometimes there are people coming to transformational presence programs, or just a short workshop we do for an hour or two, and they say, I'm coming here because there is so much going in my life. I just need some peace and quietness in myself. And well, naming those 3 questions, it exactly shows how that works. But I'm curious about that. You brought this concept that's so popular in transformational presence work. moving from drama to opportunities, and you clearly named that a little bit right now. And I'm also curious, like, how did you personally go through the dramas in your life, moving into opportunities? Because that's something that we hear, oh, it's easy to say, it's so difficult to do. And yet we see it happening in your life. We see it happening in all the people who are participating in transformational presence. So what really happens there to move from drama to opportunity?
A choice. I'm really good at the drama. And I've gotten much better at not getting caught there over the years. And that the tool that you're talking about, that framework is called the 4 levels of engagement, or the DISCO model: drama, situation, choice, opportunity. It's to recognize that, you know, and the first question you asked me in the beginning of this interview was something about, what is this work really about? And so we talk about awareness, but perhaps the next thing that is so important in this work is to recognize that in every moment you have a choice of how you will show up. And so in that 4 levels of engagement, of learning to live in choice and opportunity, choice not being what are my choices of how to fix it, but rather, how do I choose to show up right now? How do I choose to be present with what's happening? Recognizing I may not be able to change what's happening, but I can choose how I'm going to show up with it. And so there's the key, is to recognize that we always have a choice of how we're going to show up. We may feel like we don't have a lot of choices in terms of the actions we're going to take, or the next step, or what, you know, where we are in terms of action in that moment. However, as soon as we shift the focus to say, how do I choose to show up? And we get clear about how we're going to show up, the options for the next step begin to open. And there are more possibilities than you have imagined before. So it really is about choice, of recognizing in every moment you get to choose how you're going to show up.
That's so precious, and yet it makes me every time realize this is not like a cheap advice. This is actually a huge engagement needed to be at choice, to be able to see there is a choice. Engagement on the side of, like, whatever happens, it's up to you whether you will pick up the choice or you will just drown into something else, which is so easy to do.
You know, in quantum physics, well, in classical physics, there's the concept of the observer of what's happening, the observer of the experience. In quantum physics, it becomes the participant observer, because we recognize that the fact that you are present is already changing the experiment. Well, if we take that into life, we all would like to think, oh, I'm just not going to get involved there. I'll stay out of the way. I'll just observe. No, the fact that you are in the room, the fact that you are in the consciousness of what is happening is already making a difference. And so, given the fact that your presence is making a difference, what is the difference you choose to make? How do you choose to show up there?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and what came to my mind, that it needs courage. It needs courage to step up into that, and actually, it's about responsibility about life, and responsibility towards life, and responsibility for relationship with life. And I wonder, Alan, you work with people, a lot of people, leaders, managers, also coaches who come to learn from you, your method. What would you say, how their life is changing while they use transformational presence? What you can see from your perspective?
So I think we can go right back to what you were just talking about, responsibility, because a part of our work is recognizing that shift from responsibility, as in a heaviness, as, oh my gosh, now I have to take care of this, or I have to carry this, or whatever that is, into responsibility. I can choose how I will respond to what's happening here. And so when we talk about what is the impact on leaders, on coaches, on parents and teachers and anybody in the world who chooses to pay attention here, a huge part of that impact is recognizing that I can choose how I will respond. I have the ability to choose my response. So that moves from carrying something, carrying a situation, to walking with the situation. And that's a completely different energy. I wrote a blog post sometime in the last year called Put It All Down or Set It All Down. And it was all about this practice of whatever it is that you're carrying it, just set it down. Set it down. You're carrying it does not help anything. You're walking with it with clear intention can make all the difference in the world.
Thank you for sharing that. I remember that piece and it impacted on me really, really a lot. And we got a question from Eva on Facebook, posted on Facebook. Eva wants to know, what do you think, Alan, about transcending levels of consciousness? Eva is talking about David Hawkins. I don't know if you know this author, someone who wrote a book about transcending level of consciousness. What is your experience and what would you like to say about it?
So I know David Hawkins's work somewhat, and I've not been a big student of it, so I won't pretend to be able to speak directly to that. Transcendence, to me, in my experience, and in my experience in working with other people, is not something that I set out to do. It is the more I align and listen and sense and feel and say yes to where I'm being asked, a transcendence happens. I move to another level of awareness. I move to another level of possibility. Something shifts in my perspective, in my understanding of what's there. There is so much, if we are so conditioned, all of us, to look at a situation and make a plan and then make something happen. And transformational presence is so much about look at the situation, let it talk to you, let it show you what it's really about, because it's actually not about what you think it's about most of the time. And then what's it asking you for? There's a fantastic book that has come out recently called High Conflict by Amanda Ripley. And I won't begin to go into all that is from that book, but it's a great book for our times as we are living in such polarized times. But she talks about how we get to high conflict as opposed to good conflict, which is really engaging with one another and working through something. But this high conflict when we're split apart, and that awareness of listening to what it's really about. And one of the things that she talks about is that in high conflict, the real conflict, what started it, has nothing to do with what we're fighting about now. And so this transcendence, the more we're willing to listen and sense and feel and be present with, and not to be in a hurry to jump into doing something with, we automatically begin to expand in our awareness and understanding of what's there. Let it talk to you. I don't know if that answers your question, Eva, but that's what I have to say about it right now.
Thank you very much, Alan. And if I could add something from me, one of the key framework in transformational presence is for levels of engagement. And this is actually about that, transcending levels of consciousness, about the situation, about our lives. So this is one of the simplest and greatest and powerful method just to experience how to transcend levels of consciousness with that tool. And talking about that, I wonder, do you remember when you found this method? How?
Yes, I remember it very well, actually. I was teaching a class called the Spiritual Coaching Community of Practice for the International Coach Academy based in Australia. And so it was a practicum class. So students were coaching in class and we were learning from that. And I was so frustrated hearing the sort of beginner coaches coach the story, coach the drama, coach the periphery, and not ever getting to the core, to the essence of what's really going on. And so I kept asking in my meditation, how can I help them cut through to the core, cut through to the essence? And then I heard those 4 words: drama, situation, choice, and opportunity. And I realized this is just walking us right down through ways in which we engage with life. And we are so conditioned to engage at the drama and situation levels. The drama is, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, and whose fault is this? And situation is just, okay, here are the facts. This is what's happening. How do we fix it? Choice, not what are my choices of how to fix it, but who do I choose to be within this situation? And then opportunity, that there's something trying to get our attention right now. There's a message trying to come through. Pay attention. What is it? What is the situation asking us for? And so by introducing that tool to them, very quickly, they started being able to cut through to, this is what we really need to be talking about. Not this, the craziness up here. The craziness up here is just a symptom of, here's the real essence. We need to get to the essence. So that's where it came from.
So thanks so much for describing that. I think many people is constantly asking the question, how to deal with that, how to deal with the drama, how to move to the higher level of being with whatever happens. And I'm also curious, many people ask the question too, how to be more present, how to really step into this place that we can use transformational presence even more. And I'm curious, what is your practice? And maybe there are some tips or advices or invitations for our listeners and for us as well.
So you just said a really important word, and that word is practice. One of the things we talk about a lot in transformational presence is the trap of the question how. Because the question how is often taking us to just, what do I need to do? Here are the 5 things, here are the whatever, and then it's done, right? So how do I become more present? We'll just do this and then I'm more present, right? Well, no, that's not how it works. Becoming more present is a practice. And so if we take away the question how and replace it with, we can't just say, get rid of that question. We have to bring something else in its place. The question in its place is, what is my next step towards presence? Not how do I get to be more present? What is my next step in deepening my own presence? So in my own practice, certainly it is the daily meditation. That is just a non-negotiable for me. And it's not exactly the same time every day, but it's in the first 3 hours of my day. And sometimes it happens in my meditation chair right there. And sometimes it happens sitting out on my deck if the weather is nice. If I'm traveling, it's whatever. But it's in those first 3 hours of the day. It's a part of that morning ritual time, And it's anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes or an hour if my schedule is kind of open and I can give it that time. The practice itself varies. It's always a sitting practice for me. People always ask me, though, what form of meditation do you recommend? And I say, whatever works. It's whatever it is that connects for you. The one sort of caveat that I put there, though, is that there must be at least some part of your practice that is done in silence. So whether it is a sitting practice, or maybe you go running, or you walk in the forest, or you walk on the beach, or you're journaling, or whatever it is, it's that some part of it needs to be in the silence, because in the silence is where the dots start to connect. We have ahas through life all the time. Something happens, you go, oh, and yet we need to come to the stillness at some point to then see, oh, and this, then, and this, and this. It's in the stillness that the integration happens. And integration happens through the heart, not through the intellect. So it's coming to the stillness which allows us to come more into the heart as well. There's a whole other place we could go with the three intelligences and the importance of the heart and the belly. I guess the simplest thing I want to say about that, you can read or you can watch a video on my website about it. There's actually a little mini workshop, 45-minute workshop you can download for free from my website about our three intelligences and the power of choice in troubled times. So that can be a great place to start. But what I want to say to you is the heart and the belly are so key for us today. Trust that the intellect will be there. It has been well trained for your whole life. Trust that it will. It will not leave you. Put your focus on your heart and your belly and let these three work together.
Thank you so much.
I'm a great fan of meditation, and I really love your answer on. And we have a question from Jacek regarding that topic. And Jacek asks, how do you recognize that your meditation works, Alan?
Because there's a shift in my awareness and in my presence over time. There is usually a shift just from the meditation itself. It's just something settles. However, if this is very new for you, and if you are in a high stress time, then, one 10-minute meditation is not going to do it. It may help you for the next few minutes, but then you're going to be right back in the swirl, which also takes us back to the whole idea of a practice. And that what I say all the time, practice when things are good, because then you have something to support you when times are challenging. If you wait until things are hard, then it's just, it's not going to serve you in the same kind of way. So how do you know? I developed such very simple practices that I give, especially to leaders and executives who assure me that they have no time for meditation. And so I give them these very simple 60-second and 2-minute practices to do, and that you do them throughout the day, every couple of hours, just 60 seconds. Close your eyes to that. And what they notice is within a week, 10 days, they realize something's different. Something's different inside of me. I'm settling some. I'm getting quieter. As one of our graduates, I remember her TPLC so well, and she kept saying, after almost every exercise, she would say, "Oh, it's getting softer inside. It's getting softer." I just love that. So it's that recognition that over time things begin to shift, and you're feeling more a sense of alignment inside. It's not about quick fix.
Yeah,
it's a practice.
Yeah.
We are shortly coming to the next part of our transformational stories, which is your
exercise,
some practice or exercise you're going to do with us. I've got one more question, because we touched so many brilliant topics. You were talking about presence, about silence, about three intelligences, and especially belly and the heart, about the power of choice. Is there anything else that that is like an invitation for the leaders nowadays that from your perspective is so important? We know that you're working with leaders, that you support leaders in those very difficult, turbulent times. What would you invite them to right now in this post-COVID, or maybe in between COVID times?
To pay attention to your practice of your habit of, do you talk to life, or do you let life talk to you? Do you talk to projects? Do you let projects talk to you? Do you talk to the relationships in your life, or do you let the relationships talk to you? Do you talk to the challenges and situations, telling them what you want them to be, or do you listen to them? Do you let them talk to you? And so maybe the exercise is that we should do is push against our partner with, because it is so foundational to this work and shifting your relationship to what's going on. So yeah, maybe also an answer to your question, Joanna, that in transformational presence, there are many very simple yet incredibly powerful tools and frameworks. And it's easy to do one of those exercises sometimes and have a big shift in perspective. And you think, oh, wow, magic has just happened and it's all different now. No, it's not, because your habit is still where you were before. It's to recognize that nothing of this work is the magic pill. What we're doing is beginning to shift your relationship to what's going on. So to recognize that the most powerful work that we do as leaders and coaches and as parents and as humans is that the most powerful work happens in the relationship space, in the space in between you and what's happening, in the space in between you and another person, in the space in between you and an idea. And so the situation that's going on that may be the big challenge, we're not going to coach the challenge. We're not going to coach you. We're going to work with that space in between you and the challenge. And the first step is shifting your perspective. It's opening up that space, shifting the space in between. Shall we do some work with the push against our partner with?
We would love to. I think
That
that
would be
now
great.
now it has even deeper context and sounds like really invitation to all of us. With
In
whatever
the Transformational Presence, the leadership and coaching program, as well as the leadership and action program, this is the very first exercise that comes to begin introducing this way of being in the world. One of the questions that you had sent me was when is this the most powerful for you in your life? It's not about that. It's a way of life. The more you live this, the more you approach life in a very different way. And so paying attention to whether you're pushing against a situation, which is what we've all been taught. We've been taught to fix it, just make something happen, or whether you partner with it, work with what's in front of you. Whatever's in front of you right now has just become your next co-creative partner. You don't have to like it. You may not like it at all, but it's what's there. It's what's right in front of you. It also may not be your only co-creative partner, but it is the one that's right in front of you right now. And so for all of you on Facebook, bring to your awareness something that is kind of a challenge for you right now. You're having a hard time with. And you won't have to talk about it, obviously, so it can be anything very private for you. And then no matter what your relationship to that challenge is, for just a moment, push against it. Make something happen. Fix it. Just do something. Make a change. And notice what's happening in your body and in your breath when you're pushing against what's going on. Notice what happens in your relationship to the situation or the challenge when you push against it. Come on, just take care of it. Do it now. Fix it. Stay with that just a little bit longer. Even if it's uncomfortable, it's okay. Pay attention to that discomfort. Pay attention to what's happening in your whole system. When you are pushing against what's going on, just fix it. Do something about it. And then take a deep breath and kind of shake that out. Now, chances are, as much as you pushed against it, your challenge is still there. And so let's take another approach. Imagine that you can lift up above it or drop down underneath it, whichever feels easier for you. Coming to a quieter place. And listen, sense, feel. This challenge or situation is actually trying to show you something. Something it's asking you to pay attention to, or it has a message for you, or there's something that wants to happen. Let it show you. let it talk to you. Let it show you pictures or bring you words. There's something that wants to happen here. There's something that wants to shift. And what if you partner with that shift? What if you partner with what wants to happen right now? You don't have to know how. Just let yourself line up with it, as if you're going to walk beside it. And notice what's happening in your body now. What's happening with your breath. What's happening with your relationship to the challenge. How is it different if you partner with instead of push against? Now, again, it's not a quick fix. The challenge or situation is probably still there, yet perhaps your relationship to it has shifted in some way. Something has opened. Something feels easier or more possible. There's some space, some breathing space. And from here, partnering with, just this idea, this attitude of partnering with, what do you sense can be a next step? That's all, just a next step. Only one step. What's the next step in the next 24 hours with that challenge? It will show you. Let it talk to you. So Joanna and Patrick, we come back to you.
We're back, yes, and I'm so grateful because it's always it's such a short practice, and it can turn everything upside down and show you completely different reality that's coming from underneath the concepts that we are having at the first place.
When we talk about it being a practice, it comes back to how we are conditioned. We are so conditioned to push against and to just fix things, fix problems. And so be gentle with yourself and be persistent, be diligent about this. At least once a day, I say to myself, Alan, are you pushing against right now, or are you partnering with? Because the air we breathe says push against. Every bit of conditioning we've all gotten has said to push against. We're turning that around.
Yeah, I'm curious if our participants or observers are writing something about that, or maybe you've got some discoveries that you've made during this little practice that Alan has. Little, and I would say huge, actually. So maybe you've got some. Yes, that's the power of transformational presence, is this working with paradoxes. Something seems really few words, and it creates such a huge shift in life. So maybe there are some observations, comments, discoveries that you would like to share. We are very happy to hear them.
Yeah, that would be great. If you feel anything to share, just write down in a chat. And what I've noticed while you led this exercise, Alan, it's incredible passion. I love actually listening to you when you lead this little or short exercise. But for me, it was really powerful, and it is a practice. I have to say. Also from myself personally, it's so easy to slip into pushing, and this is so great to talk. And
Patrick, when you talk about the passion, and I come back to as well the you talked about courage at some point earlier today, about the courage that it takes to stand for a truth, to move into choice and opportunity. And maybe this is a gift of getting older. And having worked with this approach for more than 10 years, there comes a point where you just realize, you know what, this works. It works. So just go. And I believe in it so strongly because I've seen it transform thousands of people's lives. And so I do have huge passion for it. I've always felt like I have the best job in the world doing this work. And there's a shift now as I step back from leading the big courses, as you and others step forward into that. And yet the working one-on-one with leaders and coaches is just, my passion for that is enormous. Because
thank you very much, Alan. And, my Buddhist teacher Sangharakshita says that getting older, it's not a guarantee that you're becoming wiser. So I'm pretty sure, and I'm really sure that your wisdom you radiate with just comes from your practice and your reflection towards life.
I feel like we grow into our knowledge and we grow into our wisdom, and it just keeps going.
Yeah. There is one more thing, though, I would like to also acknowledge. It's a power of community, and that's we are so grateful for, having a community. We can meet people and talk through all our dramas. Sometimes I remember when we are talking with Patrick, and either of us is in a drama and we're slipping down, and how by one question or just noticing something, we can support each other in this practice. So like, yeah, age probably and wisdom is really supporting, and the community is the other thing that is so very useful here, and we can help each other as we are doing here in also our community in Poland.
And this community, the fact that it's such a global community, that, I mean, there are graduates from this work from more than 35 countries now. And when we come together for a global gathering, which we do every year or two, once we get past COVID again, but it's quite common that there will be 14 or 16 countries represented there, and having that global community is also huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge power. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to notice that it's a kind of community that you meet people on a completely different level. You may not know what they do professionally, but you know what's in their hearts. You know what's in their bellies. You really feel them, and it's a completely different way of knowing the other person. So it's beautiful.
Alan, thank you very, very much.
Wow, this has been so wonderful. I was so looking forward to this time with the two of you. I love you both so much, and wow, what a great gift this has been.
Thank you. Well, we met with John a few minutes before you joined us on Zoom, and we were really excited, like little kids. It was so pleasurable just to meet with you and also create the conditions when people in Poland could sense and touch the energy of you and what you glow with or shine with. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, and this is the first day of school today in Poland. So this is like we are starting something new, definitely, also with transformation presence. So we are like these kids, going back to practice.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Alan, for your generosity of always giving if we ask you for, and being here with us and inspiring our community in Poland. And I believe also other communities who join us today. And we are inviting everyone to join us into transformational presence, community practice, and whatever we are going through together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and good night to everybody. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Oh, good day, Alan. See you.
Good day, Alan. True.